we're going to be talking about whether I would choose Walt Disney World or Universal Orlando. What's up guys, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things theme parks and a lot of Harry Potter. I really love Disney World for all of the rides, the theming, and just how great the parks are in general, but I also love Universal Orlando for pretty much the exact same reasons. I think the easiest and fairest way for me to do this is break it down by category, talk to you about each, and then tell you which one wins in the end. Category number one has to be the cost of tickets. Let's just go ahead and get into how much things are going to cost. Both of these places say that their tickets start at $109 per ticket, but that is something that you'll honestly probably never actually get, is a park ticket for $109 to either of these places. The price of a park ticket really depends on when you're going to be going to each park, but if I put in the same exact days on my calendar for Universal Orlando and Walt Disney World, Disney World is going to be more expensive. Not only that, but their park hopper option is more expensive than the two-park option for Universal Orlando. So being able to go to both of the Universal Orlando parks versus being able to go to all of the Walt Disney World parks is going to be a lot cheaper. I'd say on average, park hopper at Disney World adds about $65 to each of your tickets, while at Universal it adds around $30 to your tickets. Now, of course, at Disney World you do get 4 parks versus only 2 at Universal, but for the most part, people don't really go to more than 2 parks a day at Disney World anyways, so it's like you're paying for just being able to go from one park to another. With the multi-park ticket at Universal Orlando, you are able to go to either of the parks whenever you want. You don't have to start at a certain park and you don't have to wait until a certain time to hop over to the other park. When you're at Disney World, a new thing is that you have to make a park reservation for the park that you're going to go to first, and then you can park hop starting at 2 p.m. So honestly, that kind of really limits you. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to give Universal Orlando a point for ticket prices. The next category that is very closely related to tickets would be annual passes. Disney World is not currently selling annual passes to anyone who is not a Florida resident. So if you don't live in the state of Florida, you're not able to get an annual pass to Disney World. And those of you who do live in Florida, you're only able to get the lowest tier annual pass where you can only go on most weekdays. Even when annual passes were available to non-Florida residents, the only one that you could buy was the highest tier pass, and it was $1,299 plus tax. And it had no blockout dates and all that good stuff, but you can't buy it right now, so it's kind of not even worth talking about. Florida residents do get the option at Disney World to buy 4 tiers of annual passes, but currently, right now, you can only buy the lowest tier. So I feel like you know who my points are going to here before I even talk about Universal's annual pass, because they actually offer one. Universal Orlando does offer an annual pass. They offer 4 tiers of annual passes to Florida residents and to non-Florida residents. Your highest tier has no blockout date, free parking, a free Halloween Horror Nights ticket. It's a very good annual pass. Like I said, annual passes at Universal Orlando are open for anyone to get, but Florida residents do get a discount on them, which is super nice. Another difference is the ability to make monthly payments. At Disney World, only Florida residents are able to make monthly payments on any of their tiers of annual passes, while Universal Orlando allows anyone to make monthly payments. So we're gonna give this one to Universal Orlando again. My next category is going to be ease of going to the parks. At Universal Orlando, I think it's pretty easy to get to the parks. Parking isn't a huge issue if you're driving and you have all of your transportation options that we'll talk about later. But other than that, it's really easy to just buy your tickets and go to the theme park. There's not a ton of mobile things that you have to be worried about all day long like there are in the My Disney Experience app. Disney has become very hyper-focused on using your mobile device the entire time you're at the parks. Not only that, Disney also requires you to make a reservation for the park that you're going to start at. They make you wait until 2 p.m. to park hop, and there are all these rules around going. One of our friends was trying to plan a trip to Disney World recently, and he was absolutely sick of all of the stuff that Disney has added. He's like, okay, so I have to have a park reservation. I have to have the tickets to the parks. I can only park hop after 2 p.m. I need dining reservations, and how far can I schedule those out, because they've changed that so much recently. And he was just like, this is such a headache that I don't even know if it's worth it. He was like, I'm gonna go there and then I'm also gonna have to buy the $15 lightning lane, but that only gets me on some of the rides. For some of them I have to do individual lightning lanes, and then sometimes I'm not even gonna be able to get any lightning lanes for the lightning lane that I purchased. And he was just like absolutely fed up with it, and I can totally see that. If you're someone who doesn't go to Disney World a lot, planning a Disney vacation has become so much work. It's like you need a travel agent to do that for you, and I get that travel agent fees are built into the cost of a Disney vacation or whatever, but people don't want to be confused about their vacation. They don't want to sit there and be like, okay, so like I have to mobile order here, or like, do I have a reservation there? How do I get a reservation? If they wanted to do that stuff on their own. So I think Disney has just become increasingly more difficult to just like go have a casual chill day at the park, which is such a bummer because I used to love doing that at Disney World. At Universal, you can still pretty much just go to the park, hang out in the lines, and have a good time. And even if you buy Express, it's not anything that you have to figure out on your phone and you have to wake up at 7 a.m. for. It's just an Express pass. So I think the ease of going is definitely gonna be given to Universal Orlando. So I think ease of going definitely has to go to Universal Orlando. I mean, Universal is really starting out strong here. And honestly, like I just went on a rant about Disney, but that's how I really feel. So moving on to the next one. I promise I'll say good things about Disney soon. All right, so next up we have hotels. At Universal Orlando, you are gonna be able to find some better deals just because they're not in as much demand. At Disney World, even your all-star resorts are gonna run you about $125 or more per night, and they don't really come with many perks. You can get early park admission, but you're not gonna get any like extra magic hours unless you're in a deluxe resort. So at Universal Orlando, you are gonna be able to find better deals, but at Disney, you're gonna find the greatest theming, the Disney Resort TV, and so much more. I think the theming alone at Disney World really puts them over the edge here, but there are some perks at Universal Orlando that you should take into consideration. The premier hotels at Universal Orlando give you so many more perks than the deluxe resorts at Disney World. If you're thinking about staying in like one of the higher end resorts, then Universal would definitely give you much better perks. There are some Wednesdays and Sundays that Walt Disney World would give you extra magic hours if you were staying at a deluxe Disney resort, but at Universal Orlando, those premier hotels come with an express pass, which is a huge deal. I honestly think this one's pretty close. I would give Universal like a half a point here just because of the perks that they have for their premier hotels, but I'm gonna give Disney an entire point because Disney seriously has the best theming of hotels you'll ever see. Next up is transportation, and I love talking about transportation. At Disney World, you have so many options. So you can take the buses to pretty much anywhere. You can go from Disney Springs, any of the parks, to any of the hotels. The buses are my least favorite mode of transportation at Disney World, but they are effective. If you're staying at like an all-star resort, then you are only gonna have buses as an option to get anywhere from your hotel, but you can always take the Skyliner or the monorail even if you're not staying on Disney property. You can literally go from like Disney Springs and take a bus to a hotel and then ride the Skyliner through a little Skyliner loop, or ride the monorail and do a little monorail crawl. At Universal, of course, you have buses from the hotels, and then you also have the water taxi if you are staying at one of the hotels on the water. But honestly, just for all of their options and for all of the options for people who aren't even staying at a resort, I would have to go Disney for a point on this one. All right, next up, let's talk about rides. At Disney World, everything is like really family friendly. Even the roller coasters aren't that roller coastery. At Universal, however, there are really big roller coasters that are actually coasters, and you have to like go through metal detectors and you can't take things on those rides. So Universal is more for thrills. They do have some things for kids, but not a ton. I would say Disney is more well-rounded, but if you are going for like thrill and fun, Universal is the best you can get. The Velocicoaster is amazing, and Hagrid's is probably the best ride ever. Rise of the Resistance is close. So anyways, I think rides would be a personal preference, and I'm gonna give a point to both here because I love them both so much. However, the next category is gonna be the number of available attractions, and Disney World wins this one by a pretty good margin. Disney just has more stuff for you to do, and it's geared towards everyone in the family. If I were to take my 2-year-old to Universal, it's gonna be hard for me to find things for him to do, but you can take anyone to Disney and they're going to love riding the ride. You might not get the most thrill out of it, but there are so many rides that there's definitely something for everyone. Honestly, at Disney, it definitely varies by park because Animal Kingdom only has 4 rides and a few little shows that you can watch, but Animal Kingdom just doesn't have a ton in it, which is why it's definitely a half-day park in my mind if you're going there on vacation and you don't live there. But anyways, point goes to Disney for the number of attractions, and we're moving on to the next category before people come for me because they love Animal Kingdom and I don't. All right, up next, how do you skip the lines? So at Universal, the Express Pass is definitely more expensive than the Lightning Lane at Disney. So at Universal, you can get Express or you can get Express Unlimited, and those vary in cost based on the day that you go. But no matter what, if you get an Express Pass, you're gonna be able to ride every ride in the park pretty much. That is not the case for Disney Genie. So if you buy Genie Plus, you are paying $15, and that is for the ability to go reserve some passes onto some rides. Sometimes you won't be able to get the rides that you want. So let's say you want to go ride Slinky. I love that ride, one of my favorite rides in the parks. But you go on, you buy Disney Genie, and then you go try to reserve a time slot for Slinkies and they're all gone. That is definitely possible. Because they have limited availability for each ride, you might not be able to get every single ride that you want. And it's really likely that you're not gonna be able to ride every ride in a certain park with Genie Plus. On top of that, there are some rides at every single park that are reserved as individual lightning lanes. And those you will have to pay an additional amount of money on top of that, depending on the day. But it's usually around like $8 to $15 for an individual lightning lane. So if you want to ride like Flight of Passage or Rise of the Resistance, you can buy a slot to make sure that you get on that ride. Again, those aren't guaranteed, so you can go look and see if there's a time slot to buy one, but there's not always going to be an availability. So again, at Disney World, you're on your phone, you're trying to book and schedule things on your phone and show them all of the things that are connected to your My Disney Experience app, whereas at Universal, you pay it, it's on your little ticket, and you just scan it and go in the express line. I don't love how expensive Universal's passes are, but I guess that's what makes it work. I'm gonna give half a point to Universal, and I'm still pissed off at Disney for taking away our beloved Fast Pass. Next up is Child Swap. This is very important to me as someone who has a 2-year-old that I take to the parks with me. So I actually think that both parks have a really good Child Swap system, and they're just a little bit different. So at Universal, you'll walk through the entire queue with your whole family, and then when you're getting close to the front of the ride where like you're gonna get on, there's a room dedicated to families. There's like TVs in there, toys, stuff for kids to play with. And that's where the non-rider will wait with the kid. When the rider gets off of the ride, they'll come in, and then you're right there at the very front of the line, ready to go. At Disney, you have to walk up to a cast member, kind of where there's the lightning lane area. There's usually like an umbrella there. And you just kind of scan your bands. You tell them that you want to do a child swap. They scan the band of the person who's staying with the child, and then the first rider will wait in the normal queue. While they're waiting and while they're riding, the person who scanned their magic band in keeps the kid, and they can walk around the park and go wherever they need to go. Honestly, I kind of like this idea because thinking of having my 2-year-old wait in a line with me until we got to the front of it is kind of scary, but I guess it kind of depends on your kid. So at Disney World, when the first rider gets off of the ride, the person who waited with the child gets to go scan in at a lightning lane, and they get to go through the lightning lane line. Honestly, I think this one's up to preference. I think both of them are good. I'll give both people a point here. The next category is going to be theming, and this is something that I've thought really hard about. So at Universal Orlando, I think each section of the park is themed pretty well. Like Harry Potter World, amazing. Like the Wizarding World is perfect. There's honestly nothing better than the Wizarding World anywhere. But it's not like cohesive. So like I hate looking, like when I'm standing in London, I hate looking across and seeing Simpsons. Like that bothers me. But at Disney World, that's not really ever the case. They take everything into consideration there, and they even like paint buildings certain colors to make them blend in, and you just never really see anything that Disney doesn't want you to see. On top of that, I think the hotels at Disney World are also much more themed. I just think Disney is better themed all around, and maybe that's just because they have better IP, but no matter what, it's great theming there and I absolutely love it. So this point definitely goes to Disney World. In terms of park food, I think that both of these parks have really good options. Disney has a lot of quick service as well as sit down places. Their menu can change for like festivals at Epcot and things like that, which I think is super fun. But I also like the food at Universal. I think it's pretty good for theme park food, and they have some really well themed food items as well. I do think they have a lot of positives, but I think Disney just has more options for everyone, so I'm gonna give the food point to Disney. And our last point is going to be crowds. So I don't care what any crowd calendar says, Disney does not have an off time. We actually went to Disney this January and it was like lowest crowd day of the year, and Magic Kingdom reached capacity and people couldn't even get in. Disney World does not have an off-peak time. Every single day at Disney World is insane. With that being said, there are more parks and more rides at Disney World, so for the most part, the wait times aren't gonna be like drastically higher than they would be at Universal, but there's just so many people. At Universal, you can kind of predict the crowds a little bit better just because people don't like spend 2 to 3 week vacations at Universal like they do at Disney. People will also like go to the beach and tack on a day at Universal where they won't really do that at Disney World. So I just think for the most part that Universal is less crowded than Disney. Even though there are fewer rides, wait times might be just as high, but there are fewer people around you in the parks. So on a controllable crowd level, I'm giving that one to Universal. And if I added all that up correctly, I literally think they tied. Kind of a bummer. We want a winner in these things. Like a year and a half ago, I would have definitely been someone who was like all pro Disney and would not have wanted to go to Orlando and not go to Disney World. But I actually love Universal now. I think Universal has so much value to offer and so many things to do for not as expensive as Disney. I do think if you look at this video and break it down, Universal really won based off their monetary value, while Disney won more things based on like the theming perspective. And I love the theming perspective, but the problem I have with Disney these days is that if I'm going to Disney and I'm spending so much money to go to Disney, I feel like the magic is a little bit ruined just because I know all of the changes that are being made, and it just kind of bums me out. I just don't want to walk into the theme park and be thinking like, oh yeah, we used to do this for free and now we're paying for it. Or like, oh, I used to be able to like do this super easily, but now I'm having to like go on the My Disney Experience app at 7 a.m. and rush to like fight people for a spot. So overall right now, I just think you get more value and it's a little bit easier to go to Universal. Plus it doesn't hurt that they have Hagrid's in the Velocicoaster. So technically my video might have ended in a tie, but based on the exact points that I gave, you may rate it a different way. You may think that child swap is a big deal and love how Disney does it, so you give them a point instead of giving both of them a point. You might not care at all about annual passes, so you might take away that point from Universal. It honestly just depends on you, but those are the things I would think about when I was comparing Universal Orlando to Disney World. So I wanna know in the comments, based on these categories, which one would you rank higher? And if I missed a category that you absolutely think I should have included, leave that in a comment as well. If you found this video helpful in any way, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss another video like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.